Okay, so I was supposed to sit here and film, and she plans to sit in the exact spot that I want to sit and film. Honey, can you please get up? Please? Hi. Hello everyone, welcome to a new video. As you may have seen, Honey decided to accompany me and she is sleeping right here beside me. But let's dive into the books that I read in May and June. I read, I think, around a total of 17 books in like May and June. I read a lot more books in May than in June, but I just wanted to make a wrap up for both of the months just because I forgot to make one for May just because my work started in June and I was kind of busy. But here I am now and I'm really excited. Let's just dive in. I have my Goodreads like right open here so that I can remember all the books. Now most of these books have been read on my Kindle and a lot of them are non-fiction books, which are quite short books. I feel they were more of like cozy reads, so I don't remember them very well because I read them in May and they were very similar, but I'll just give you like a glimpse of what they were and my rating for them. So the very first book that I have here, I'll put a cover here, and that is The Little Book of Mindfulness, and this is by Gilly Pickup. I think it's Gilly or Jilly, I'm not sure. Now this was again a very short book and it was just about mindfulness, about how to be mindful, little tips, tricks and techniques, and how to just be living in the present moment. And I gave it 4 stars. I found that it was quite helpful, though nothing especially new, but I found it quite cozy to read, and so I gave that one 4 stars. The next book I read is It's Okay Not to Be Okay. Again, another book that was a non-fiction. It was by Claire Chamberlain, I think, and as you can see, it is a very, again, non-fiction book, and it was about mental health issues. I actually was interested in reading this book because of this K-drama I watched, which is also by the same name. I think it's like It's Okay to Not Be Okay, and it was just such a beautiful drama about mental health, and this book was also about mental health. I did give it 3 stars though because I found, again, it was something that I already knew. Like every topic that was covered in the book was something that was familiar to me, but if you're new to mental health issues, it was a good book and quite informative. So yeah, I would definitely recommend if you want to learn about mental health. The next book I read is Band Money Secrets. This was actually my 3rd time reading it. Again, I read it on my Kindle and I absolutely love this book. It is a Law of Attraction book by Richard Dotman, and he just frames everything so beautifully in this book, and that is why I've been rereading it a lot. So yeah, it was my 3rd read. I gave it 5 stars just because it's a favorite and I will always keep rereading it, and yeah, it was one of my favorites, so had to give it 5 stars. The next book, again on the Kindle, another non-fiction, was The Little Book of Happiness. I have the title here. It was by Patrick Whiteside. So again, this one, this was another non-fiction, but it was not my favorite. It was just like kind of quotes and poems or something. I don't exactly remember properly, but I remember there were no details in it. It was just like written for the sake of writing it, and I hated that about the book. I gave it 1 star. It was just not helpful. It was just telling you to be happy without really like giving anything to work with, if you know what I mean. Now the next book, the title is quite similar. It is The Little Book of Big Happiness by Bernadette Fizzers. So that is the non-fiction book I read. Now this one I did like much better than the previous book. Again, I read this on my Kindle and I gave it 3 stars. This book was divided into different sections like body, work, relationships, and about how you can be happier in those different categories. And I feel like the help advice was much more practical. Now I did give it 3 stars because I feel, again, nothing new was shared in there. There was nothing phenomenal, and if you're new to self-help, it's definitely much more helpful to read a book like this and then go to something advanced. But for me, because I've been reading self-help for so long, it just felt like it was alright. The next book I read, again on my Kindle, I have so many non-fictions, and that is Slow, Finding Peace, and purpose in a hectic world, and this was by Joe Peters, and I gave this one 3 stars as well. It's just like the title says, it's about living slowly and mindfully, and I feel like it was so similar to the first book I read, and there was nothing new again. It was quite an average read, but I don't like remember it very well again. It was all right, it was average, and hence I gave it 3 stars. And because I've read so many of these nonfiction so quickly over a little time, I do feel like a lot of what I read has been like just jumbled up in my mind. But yeah, it was a good book if I gave it 3 stars. The next book, now this one, it's right here on my bed, and this is what I read after that book, and that is Summer at Little B Street Bakery by Jenny Colgan. And I love this book. If you know me, I love Jenny Colgan books, and I did give it 4 stars and not 5 stars because there was like this kind of an incident that happens. It's not about the main character, but it happens between this girl and this guy in the village, and I didn't really like what happened, and so yeah, I gave it 4 stars out of 5 just because I feel like certain issues should not be taken so lightly, but it was. I don't want to spoil anything for you, so I'm not saying anything, but this is about Polly, who decides to start a bakery in this Cornish town. I forgot the name of the place. Is it like Cornwall? It's Cornwall, and it's kind of like an island. It's got like a small little pathway that sometimes gets flooded over depending on the tide of the water. So if it's a high tide, then the path gets like flooded over, and it's sort of an island, and Polly decides to move there, and she starts a bakery in the first book, and this is the second book in the Little B Street Bakery series. And in this book, it's just more about her struggles, and I just felt like this book was so realistic and beautifully written, and I still remember reading it and the way I felt, and even more so because I remember that there was like a storm in the book, and it was kind of a summer storm, and even we had a cyclone that occurred just in summer when I was reading this. So yeah, it was quite an interesting read. I absolutely enjoyed it, and I loved it. So yeah, that was my one fiction read among so many non-fictions. The next book was actually a graphic novel, and it was a reread. I'll have the page here. So It's Okay to Feel Things Deeply by Carissa Potter. Again, another book about mental health, but in a graphic novel form, and it was so beautiful. I gave it, I think, yeah, 4 stars, and I just found it so beautifully portrayed everything that she's written about mental health. And yeah, I don't really think I can explain it very well, but it is about, it's kind of just like it's okay to not be okay, that it's okay if you're feeling a certain way, and she also gives you practical ways to deal with that situation. The next book I finished, another book by Jenny Colgan. I again gave this 4 out of 5 stars because again, certain things didn't seem realistic, but it's fine. So this is The Summer Seaside Kitchen. It's about this girl Flora, and she like she's working in London, but she's grown up on this kind of island. Yeah, it's an island called Muir, and it's apparently an imaginary island that Jenny Colgan has come up with, but she did say that it was inspired by her own childhood, I mean Jenny's childhood, and it's about Flora having to go back to Muir because she has some work assignment. And this is not like a spoiler, she also has a crush on her boss Joel, and it's kind of funny the way things are put in the book, like you'll see. So yeah, it's kind of like cliche when you look at how, you know, she has a crush on her boss and everything, but other than that, the story itself is beautiful, and it's about Flora rediscovering, not rediscovering exactly, but discovering cooking and village life and everything. It's just so cozy. I don't want to give spoilers, but would highly recommend reading this series. I have already got the second book in the series, that is The Endless Beach, as well. You may have seen that in my haul, but yeah, beautiful, cozy, comforting. Highly recommend. Again, this also had a storm in it, and I did read it during that storm time we had. Like, really fun. The next book, again another non-fiction, you won't be surprised. This is Self-Care by Claire Chamberlain. Again, I read this on my Kindle. This again wasn't like phenomenal. I gave it 3 stars. It was just tips and stuff to, you know, take care of yourself. And I feel like, again, a lot of these were something I knew about, but I did find like 2 or 3 tips really helpful, so I did give it 3 stars because of that. It was a good read. If you're new to self-care, I highly recommend all these books. They're really short, but they're really helpful if you don't know much about self-care. The next book, another nonfiction, it's How to Relax by Laura Milne. I hope it's correct, the pronunciation. But again, another book I read on my Kindle. These were again tips on how to relax. I feel like I did want to read this just because I do find it difficult to relax when I'm like working. I just sometimes cannot stop thinking about work or about, you know, other things, and I can't just chill out and just let myself be. And that's the reason I was like decided to pick this book up, and I did enjoy it. The tips were really good, and it was cozy and comforting again, but again, nothing groundbreaking or mind-blowing or anything, but I gave it 3 stars because it was a good read. The next book I read was actually a book by Heidi Swain, and I've talked about this in my book haul as well, and that is The Secret Seaside Escape by Heidi Swain. And Gav actually gifted me this book, and it was a summer read, so I wanted to read it in the summer, and I did, and it was a lovely read. I gave it 3 stars though, so there were a few issues in the book that I didn't like. So the whole plot is about Tess, and she's working for her dad's company, and her mother has passed away, and she discovers something that kind of leads to her just sort of breaking down and wanting to escape her whole work environment, and she's also a bit stressed. So she decides to escape to this, I don't remember what, let me just check, Wynmouth, or is it Winemouth? I'm not sure, but she decides to go there because that's the place where her family used to go to before when her mom was alive, and she has a lot of memories of the place, so she decides to go there to just take a break, kind of a vacation. And it's about her discovering a lot of things along the way, and also getting involved with all the people living in Wynmouth. And I found the premise to be really cozy. It was beautiful, but the only issue was Tess. I just did not like Tess. She was always jumping to conclusions and assumptions without actually trying to find out if that was the truth, and that really annoyed me. She kept assuming everything about everyone, even when she was not really a part of village life for long. She didn't know so many people, and she was still assuming things about them. And it was just annoying to the point where it was obvious to the reader, but not to Tess. So yeah, it was still a good read, a really comforting read, so it was 3 stars. I do plan on reading more books by Heidi Swain, and I know I will love them because I love the writing and stuff, but I'm just hoping the character is going to be a bit less like dumb. Well, I wouldn't say she was like dumb, but she was definitely thick-headed. Yeah. The next book I read, again, it was on my Kindle, and this is It's All in Your Head by Russ, and he's apparently a singer who I don't really know about, but Gav told me about him, and it's a nonfiction book. He talks about the law of attraction a lot in this book, and he does talk about it's all in your head, so it's kind of like you always worrying. So he talks about how he never really worries, and he also talks about being confident. Now, it was all good and stuff, but I just feel like sometimes he was like super overconfident, which was kind of annoying to me. So I gave the book 3 stars. It was an average read. It was good, but nothing great or phenomenal. And I just could not relate to the whole, you know, like, I have never doubted myself. Like, I can't relate to that. But I did like the fact that he talks about like not really conforming to society, or not really getting caught up in the whole drama of having too many friends and socializing, and instead of that, just focusing on yourself and working on your own goals. That is something I definitely believe in, and so yeah, that's something I really liked about him. he also, like, I have a lot of highlights in the book, and I did love the points he did make. So yeah, it was good, but just had a few issues. Now the other book, I talked about this in my vlog once, but it is F Stress by Alex Martin. I am really tired of cuss words in books, so I just picked it up because it was about anxiety, but I do prefer books without cuss words now because I'm just like tired of it at this point. But the book itself was fine. It had some tips and you know, advice on how to deal with anxiety, and I feel like, again, a lot of the tips were average and things that I knew about, but it will be helpful to someone who's reading it for the first time or just new to self-help. So I did give it 3 stars again, and yeah, it was an average read. The next book I read was 50 Tips to Build Your Self-Esteem by Anna Barnes, and it was again another nonfiction I read on my Kindle. There were 50 tips, and so I gave this book 2 stars because there were 50 tips, but they were 50 tips for your life and how to live your life better, but not specifically catering to self-esteem. And I just did not see the point of, you know, giving a title about self-esteem and then not talking about that specifically in the book. Like, if you're writing a book, you need to dedicate it to that particular topic if you're going to put that in the title. So yeah, it was fine, but I gave it 2 stars because of the misleading title. The next book, and the last book I think, is Anxious People by Frederick Beckman, and I love this book. I buddy read it with Kat from my Pages and Books. I'll just put the title here of her channel, and I'll also link her channel down in the video description if you want to check it out, because she's just a lovely person. I had so much fun reading this with her, and we had like differing times because she's in the US and I am in India, so you know, our times differ, and hence we had to like catch up with each other while we were reading, but we had so much fun and I loved this book. So this book is about a bank robber who decides to rob a bank, but don't be deceived by that simple plot. It is about so much more. It's about people in general. It's about their anxieties. It's about you know, their lives and how everyone is connected in a way. I just love the way Frederick Beckman wrote, and it was my first book by Frederick Beckman, and it was just so beautiful. So in the plot, like, there's this twist where you know, the bank robber has these few hostages, but then the hostages kind of feel like the bank robber is the one who's kind of trapped, and you'll see why as you're reading it. And I just feel like at that point when you're reading it, you start like relating to everyone in the book, because everyone is written so realistically and beautifully, and I definitely had a cry or two while I was reading it because it was just so touching. And there are different stories that are kind of all connecting together. I feel like the book was plot driven but also character driven, because there was a plot going on and there was a mystery that was building, and at the same time you learn so much about these different characters and you get attached to them. So yeah, it was wonderful. I loved it. And I also found that a lot of the times I was reading it, it felt like nonfiction because of the way Frederick Beckman wrote, and it kind of was interesting to read something like this. And if you can't already tell, I gave this 5 stars. I just loved it so much. It was a beautiful experience. I read it like in a week along with Kat, and it was just so much fun. So yeah, that was not my last book. I have another book after that. It's again another nonfiction. You won't be surprised, and that is F It by John Peters. And is it John? Sorry, it's John Parkin. And again, another book on my Kindle. I did actually mention this in my vlog, but he writes the book where he's talking about being at peace with life just as is, and he's divided the book into 3 different levels, and it's about my camera just stopped recording, so he talks about different levels. So there are 3 levels, and he talks about thinking on like how you can think on level 1, level 2, and then level 3, and level 3 being like the F It, where you're at peace with life just as is. And he talks about how to read from level 1 to level 3, and I did find it quite interesting and stuff. It was quite good the way he wrote it and how he explained all the levels, but again, I feel like in the end the book kind of got repetitive, where he was talking about being at peace with everything, and in a way it was like he's just telling you to be okay with everything, and it was the same thing over and over again, kind of. So yeah, it was good but not great, and to me, I give those books 3 stars, so it was a 3-star. It was fine. It was a quick read, so yeah. But those are all the books that I read. It felt like such a long video. My camera literally gave up because I feel like the video got too long, but I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you find some good recommendations from these books and maybe pick those yourself. The reason I love making these book reviews or books I read basically is because hopefully if you like something that I described, you can pick it up for yourself and I can help you find some books. But yeah, that's all. I'm going to be ending the video here, and I hope you're staying safe, taking care, and I hope everything gets better with time. Things are looking up on some days and then looking down on the others, and I'm just hoping that things are gonna be okay. But if you're feeling anxious or stressed, you can pick up a few of these nonfictions that I mentioned. They did help me feel much calmer, so I hope they'll help you feel calmer too. Yeah, and Honey's still chilling with me. Hi. Hi. But I'm gonna go and chill more with her, and I'll see you in a new video. Bye.